And so I think getting away from home is a good thing for these guys. Go somewhere warm, get away from that. And not like they played themselves in this position on purpose, but you could get Slay back. Sidney Brown's out, but Maddox came back against Arizona. I think like that helps a lot. A.J. Brown and Devontae, they're hopeful that these guys come back, in the words of Nick Sirianni. But even if they don't come back, I think Philly can win this game. Make Little Caesars the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. Order online during the Pizza pregame all day on NFL game days and Pro Bowl Sunday, and get ready for some football and fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, you win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game. Put some in the fridge. I like cold pizza. All right, I'm going to start this off by asking you guys, order these games in order of excitement. We're going to do them chronologically, but this weekend, I think this is a beautiful wild card weekend. I said on Monday, this reminds me of our version of, a guy's version of maternity. You know, we got to wait 16, now we got to wait, it was 17 weeks, now we got to wait 18 weeks to see what this baby looks like. Mm-hmm. And the baby's beautiful. It's a beautiful baby. Every team you would want in here, save for maybe Cincinnati with Joe Burrow or one or two others. But these are some great matchups, dude. And there's some, even the teams that don't have their starting quarterbacks, like you've got Cleveland and Joe Flacco. You've got Flacco going against a rookie. You've got Green Bay and Dallas. You've got Stafford going back to Detroit. Who doesn't want to see Philly at Tampa? So, guys, rank them.
Rams, Lions, 1. Fins, Chiefs, 2. I would go, Chris, Browns, Texans, 3.
That's going to be a fucking great game.
And then followed by Packers, Cowboys, Steelers, Bills, and Eagles, Bucks is just I don't know what that's going to look like.
But that's what like there's more games in a typical year that are like Eagles Bucks, and that's the strength of this slate.
It's cool in that we have no idea what's going to happen.
No idea.
I'm loving Miami KC.
Yep.
Just
Me
because the
too.
snow, how it's going to look. Miami in the snow cracks.
That's
me
number
up.
one for me.
Is there snow?
Me
There's
too.
snow?
There's supposed to be
Not snow, but projected
all right.
minus 30 wind chill.
That for me, I love
crazy.
seeing. And there was a Chris Brockman tweet that we'll get into in a second. And he was talking about like, hey, this is dangerous. You want to talk about player safety? It's going to be minus 30 out there. And yeah, great point. But are we going to dome all the hot weather stadiums? Because last time I checked, more
That is
people
the
die of
most
heat
pussy
stroke.
thing I've ever.
No, you can say that.
That's pussification.
Of America.
Play the fucking ball.
Just
ball.
play the game. I'm with you. I love watching
Are
cold
you
weather games,
shitting
and
me?
I think people that don't wear sleeves in that game should be deported. Okay?
I don't. We're getting real political.
That's not political.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I love the Rams and Lions. I do the McCarthy. I wish that game was in Green Bay.
Yeah, look at all
bit,
that. I'm just looking at it like it's America's
storylines.
teams. I mean, you got McCarthy, and here's where I go. I go number one Miami KC because of my interest in those teams. Okay, like I've planted my flag on Miami. I've also been somebody that's been really intrigued by this Kansas City thing and stood on the table for them, and I think they can change. We'll see. I'm really excited about the Rams in Detroit and Green Bay and Dallas, Cleveland and Houston, the two obviously that are less exciting, Pittsburgh and Buffalo, but that's going to be cold as shit, windy as hell. So I'm into those kind of games. You could see a rock fight break out there. You're saying 30 to
27-7.
Okay. And then Philly and Tampa, of course nobody wants to see that game, but I love the drama, okay, because there's a lot of drama. So let's start with the first game Saturday, and that's Cleveland-Houston. And on a macro level, I think it's really cool that no matter who wins this game, you're going to have a great story. It's going to be Flacco, who a couple months ago was sitting on the fucking couch playing the divisional round and being the reason they're there, or it's C.J. Stroud and a rookie head coach. And I think either way, it's great. And I think both of those teams, if they come out of this round, can win their second game. Okay? I really do think that. So I think when it comes to Houston, what does it mean for Houston that they give up a lot of shots and Cleveland takes a lot of shots? Okay, that's like the headliner for me. I think that means that Houston needs to stop the run with a light box. Okay, it doesn't take a genius to say we just can't commit so many bodies to the run game. And I would argue that Cleveland, don't get caught up in this, Houston. Don't get caught up in looking at Cleveland. It's interesting. We look at Cleveland as a totally different team than they are because of their brand, right? You think about who they were coming into the season. They were a ground and pound team. They had Nick Chubb. They had this all-star offensive line, and those guys are really good. And they've got a great defense. But who is Cleveland today, and who is Cleveland on the road, okay? So I'll take the first part of it. Cleveland today is not a team that runs the ball. Since week 13, I think they're 28th in EPA running the ball. And a lot of that has to do with injuries. They've had Batonio banged up. They've had guys up front. They've had tackles out. So the run game is a little bit different, okay? And so if I'm Houston, I'm not intimidated. I'd take the challenge and say, hey, our guys up front, and that's Will Anderson, it's Grenard, it's Sheldon, it's that whole group has to be not only disruptive, getting to the quarterback, but they got to stop the run with a light box, okay? And that means we're not going to commit a bunch of bodies. And the good news for them is Flacco has thrown a lot of picks. So you got to cash in on these opportunities. And the one coverage, and we'll talk about it with Josh too, I think for guys that love taking deep shots, who are aggressive by nature. I always tell this story back when Philly, we lost Carson Wentz and Nick Foles was the guy. They asked Frank Reich, like, how do you keep his confidence high? How do you keep a backup's confidence high? And Frank Reich's answer was like, we have the opposite problem here. Okay, like Nick Foles wants to make every throw, and so does Joe Flacco. These big arm guys that like taking shots, cover three, that's a tough one. Middle of the field safety doesn't have far to go. Those corners, they're back there too. There's a lot of bodies back there. He has struggled versus cover three. That's what Houston runs. And then offensively, I think, how does Houston keep the pressure off of Stroud? He's great, but you don't want him to have to do everything, right? They obviously have to run the ball, and that's a tall task and all that. But when we were getting ready to break down Houston and Cleveland not a month ago, I looked at the run cut-up of explosive plays against the Cleveland Browns, and there are a lot of them, especially in that Rams game. They kept going toss and didn't stop. They kept hitting the perimeter, did not stop. So if I'm Houston, that's where I try to make some hay. We talk about with teams that play Cleveland, and to explain to people at home, they are an attacking front. I played in Jim Schwartz's defense. It's like see ball, get ball, and go. It was too much thoughtless play for me. But like for these guys, it's great. Just go, dude. And the thing that disrupts a zone offense, side to side run game where it's not gap scheme, there aren't new gaps being created by pullers, they're not running power. The thing that disrupts that is penetration. You talk about Seattle and Tom Cable's group, the reason we always kick their ass is because we got up the field and we disrupted things. You had a good defensive line. Okay, so the question is, can you vary your looks if you're Houston? I know what they run, but can you vary your looks? If you looked in the first game, they were in inside zone and outside zone 9 times. They were in power once. They were in trap once. They were in toss 3 times. And they ran a jet sweep. Their explosive plays were on the edge. So I would mix in gap scheme, and I would hit the edge. And I wondered last night, like, did they hold anything back? They had to win that game. So you don't hold anything back in the run game that game. CJ loves cover 3 and cover 1. That's what they run. The news on Ward is not great for the Cleveland Browns. Now, they do have an Emerson who's a long guy. Like, he has the length to match up with Nico Collins. The last part of it, when I asked you, how do you view Cleveland today? They're not a run football team, although a lot of things come off of misdirection, and you want to keep the linebackers in a blender. I think that's why Stefanski's so great. By the way, Christian Harris played great in that last game against the Colts. They've had some guys step up. I think Perriman's a nice player. They missed him when he was gone. I'm going to read some numbers to you. 26, 38, 24, 31, 29, 36. These are the scores. You know the answer because we just talked about it with Steve. Okay? But these are the scores that the Cleveland Browns gave up on the road prior to their 36-22 win against the Case Keenum-led Texans.
I think the over might be the play.
I think it is.
Here in this.
I think it is. And I think they've seen some good quarterbacks, but this quarterback's just as good as the ones they've seen. And they've seen the MVP, they've seen Matt Stafford, but this guy plays just as well throwing the ball as those two guys. And so I don't know who Cleveland is, but we're going to find out. I think I have an idea who Cleveland is, but this is a tough situation for them.
Listen to this. What if it's halftime, okay, and the score's 10-6? Feel a little bit differently about the total
I sure would.
at that point.
I sure would. You're right.
Something to
Okay,
think
what
about.
if?
That's because we have a whole half of football to.
True.
But that's gonna be a great game to kick the weekend off, and then Saturday night.
Is that what you would have put there for the first game?
What?
First game's usually the game we don't love as much as the others.
Well, I kind of wonder if Philly and Tampa were put on Monday night to get the bump. You know, the Monday night bump. I kind of wonder if that was part of it. I don't know how ratings work in the playoffs, but I would imagine that Monday night must be a good spot for giving teams a bump.
And it's the Saturday game is two good teams, but two very small markets.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also there's a chance that Miami KC is a stinker in more ways than one. Like it could be, a pretty easy day at the office for Kansas City. I think it's more likely that it's an ugly game. You don't want to put Philly and Tampa before that game. You got two games that maybe aren't. There's not a lot of firepower. I think there's going to be some firepower Saturday.
Chiefs are favored by 4.5. That totals 44.
Okay, so let's talk about this game because I really dug deep on this game. And part of the reason I dug deep on this game was I think Kansas City is going to tell us if they're a player or not this weekend. Like, Eileen, they probably can't make a run, and that's a big change of tune from me middle of the season standing on the table and saying, like, who's beating them in Kansas City in the playoffs? I still think this favors them tremendously. Now, they're going to have to go on the road to win a Super Bowl. They're going to have to run the ball to win a Super Bowl. And I hearken back to that Chris Brockman tweet, okay? The question to me is, what do you make of Miami's cold weather games? Because there is a track record here. Does this favor the home team, that plays in the cold? I don't know. Ask my dad. My dad played for the Raiders, Southern California boy, by way of Charlestown, Massachusetts. But I think his blood got pretty thin, and they went up to play Buffalo, and it's like negative up there. It's like negative wind chill. And they got their asses kicked. I was at Blake Solomon's house. It was January 15th, 1994. I'm playing Sega Genesis. I'm playing NHL on Sega Genesis, and we take breaks and watch the game. Like, my dad was not like, you have to watch my games. I don't know what I was thinking. I was kind of taking breaks. But every time I turned the game on, he was jumping off sides. He jumped off sides 5 times.
Whoa!
Howie was horny that day. Okay?
Get off the field, 75.
75. But I think the point was he was just rage jumping off sides because they got beat bad, and it was cold, and I'm sure he could tell you, like, that did not favor the team from Southern California. Now, the Raiders beat the Browns in 1981, and there were Arctic temperatures in that game. And also, by the way, it was -6 with a wind chill of 25 when the Vikings lost at home to the Seahawks, and everybody remembers that Blair Walsh game. That was the Vikings that lost that game. Now, they were a dome team. They were playing outside for a year or two. But the point is, I don't know who this favors when it comes to, like, these guys live and practice in this climate relative to Miami. I don't know. I think it's about execution. I think it's about the quarterback. I think it's about taking care of the ball. And I had somebody ask me this week, like, are you picking Kansas City because the Finns are bad in these spots? Okay, the last 10 where the kick temp was under 40 or below, they're 0-10 with an average loss of 17. Now, I want to be really fair to Tua because Tua's only been there in 3 of these games with McDaniel. That's not that important of a stat to me. There's a lot that happened that preceded. Even if Tua was playing those games, he was playing under B flow. Like, they're a different team. And I want to say this, I'll take it a step further, being fair to Tua. Last year, I thought he played really well up in Buffalo in the snow. I thought that was their best game, ironically, against an actual good team over the last 2 years offensively. So I want to be fair to him. It's a small sample size for him. I know they played well in Buffalo, but his stats, 0-4 with 55% completion, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions with a 71 passer rating. And that's taking that Buffalo game into account. So it's a real thing for this team. I don't think they're a particularly tough team. I think they have tough players, but I don't think they're a tough team.
Wow.
And
now Van Ginkel,
Van Ginkel's out. Chubb's
Phillips.
out. Phillips has been out. I think they had another Baker, I think went on IR. I think Baker's going to miss this game.
He is.
So, there's a lot of guys they're missing defensively, and I thought that was the group that could spring them to a run. And I think people listen to me say, well, you're just being a hater, not giving the offense any credit. It's true. For them to beat good teams, they're going to have to hold teams around 20 points because that's their track record against good teams. So the actual football, taking the cold weather out of it, who's the better running team? And I think anybody with a brain would say Miami. Miami has the 8th best EPA running the football. Kansas City's 23rd. I think Kansas City has a commitment problem to running the football. Okay, but let's start with Miami. Miami's going to try to get on the edge. That's what they do. Everything comes off of them being able to get on the edge. That's why we talk about Buffalo playing cover 2, playing the corners down, taking away the easy answers outside, whether it's the pass or the run. And I think you can really throw them off in the pass game that way. I watched the first game. I broke it down like it just happened. Okay, I've already seen it. But if I was KC, I would play that bear front. At home, if you don't know what bear front is, it's a zero nose. It's 2-3 techniques. So defensive tackles lined up on the outside shade of the guards, and then 2 overhang players. The reason that's a good front against outside run teams is because you keep the backers free. If you cover up the guards can't climb to the second level and get on these backers, okay? And I thought they ran the bear front a lot in that first game. They got better backers than they had in that game because guess who's back? Nick Bolton, okay? And they're playing in a game now that demands being able to run the ball. So if Miami's going to get on the edge, I run that bear front and I play 1 and 6 behind it. It's cold. I'm not worried as much about these guys. They might be down Waddle. I saw him in warm-ups today. He's trying to stretch that high ankle. I know how that feels. Like it's a motherfucker. I don't know that he's going to play. And so you're down a speedy receiver. You've got to hit the outside run stuff if you want everything that comes off of it. And another thing that Buffalo did that I thought was an interesting wrinkle is they backed their linebackers off a little bit last week to put them in those hook curl windows. Those easy throws that Tua lives off of right down the seam and right outside the tackle box. That helped Buffalo. And I think that could help Kansas City as well. I think they're good enough in the middle that they can depend on, hey, we're not going to throw everything. We're not going to throw the kitchen sink at stopping the inside run. Let's keep our backers free and allow them to flow and make plays, which I think they can do. Kansas City's going to run out of lighter personnel. If it were me, I watched that first game. They made a lot of hay running out of 11 personnel and out of lighter personnel. I looked at it. That's what my eyes said. They ran a lot of split zone. That's where the tight end comes across the formation, the zone inside. I think they're down edge guys, as we talked about, so I think you should attack the edges. I mean, they're not much of a stretch team, but try these guys. And so to me, it's not just about the big guys. When you think about running the football in the playoffs, you think about, it's big on big. It's the D tackles, it's the guards. I want to see what the corners tackle like. I want to see what the little guys that are from Broward County, and I'm not talking about Miami Dolphins, I'm talking about all these speedy motherfuckers that play outside. You know who doesn't? You know who's not afraid of tackling? L'Jarius Sneed, McDuffie, those guys on the edge for Kansas City, they're like knives. Okay, so I want to find out if they can set the edge and if those guys can tackle outside if I'm Kansas City, okay? And I think it proved out. I want those little glass eaters on my team. I want those little L'Jarius Sneeds and McDuffies. We'll find out if those guys eat glass outside for Miami. I know Jalen Ramsey can eat some glass, okay? It's a tough visual for you. But the other guys, I don't know. We'll find out. And so I went in and looked, okay? They have always run the ball in Kansas City well, right? But at times they have not committed to it. The gap scheme stuff this year, they're top 10 in yards per attempt. Okay, explosive run percentage, top 10 in general. And you're not seeing heavy boxes. I thought when I'd look, I'd see that with Patrick Mahomes and these receivers this year that people would be loading the boxes. They're not seeing 8-man boxes. And I think that speaks to how afraid you still are of Patrick Mahomes, right? So I think for Kansas City, getting those lighter personnel groupings and run the ball, because against Miami, 3.9 a carry in 12 personnel and 5-3 in 11 personnel. So that's a yard and a half if you just dictate the personnel. And so for me, I would get in those lighter personnels and I'd run the ball. The question then is who has the edge in the pass game, and I think the key to the pass game is disguises. You watch that first game, I think part of the reason that Spags lived in a little bit more zone than usual is because he wants to disguise pre-snap. You know, you're going to get a late rotation from the safety. You're going to get some guy who's disguised the perfect edge blitz. Like, that's what they do, and that showed up in that game. And I think on the other side of it, Vic Fangio pressuring Patrick Mahomes on early downs to try to get them behind the sticks and speed him up. You know, like they did that in that game for the run and for the pass. So you have to hey, if I'm a coordinator, and thank God I'm not, I'm looking at that game and saying, hey, if we get 3 2nd and 5s, we're at least getting one run blitz, okay? So can we make them pay if we know where it's coming from? I would try to make them pay on early downs. And for Miami, I would expect tempo. You know, like Miami tried to get up to the line and go fast at least on one occasion in that game to keep you from disguising. Because if you snap the ball now, Spags, you know, he can't do everything that he wants to do pre-snap. But they had a penalty. You know, they lined up, tried to snap the ball quick. They had a penalty. So you got to be disciplined. The quarterback has to be good. And like I said, the easy answers on the edge are not easy when you play guys like Snead, McDuffie. The RPO game for people at home, run pass option. You're going to have safeties that are going to be moving all over the field. You can dictate where Tua goes with that ball, whether he hands it off or whether he hits that hook curl window. Walk a safety down, dissuade him, play with his eyes. And so I think ultimately in a game where the tie break is the quarterback, I trust Mahomes in this situation. Not just in the big situation, but in a situation where it's going to be chilly as fuck. And you could say, hey, Kelsey didn't do much in that first game. Like so many other games, he opens things up. That first touchdown that got overturned on their first drive, Kelsey drew the coverage away from the middle of the field. The big check down to Watson, or the big chunk to Watson, Kelsey's underneath, pulling the coverage underneath. The touchdown to McKinnon late. They got crossers, right? Everybody's looking at Kelsey. McKinnon just jogs in. So take advantage of Kelsey even when he doesn't have the ball. I really wish they had McKinnon, get Donovan Smith back, and somebody's got to step up besides Kelsey, Rashee Rice. I like Watson a lot. I think this could be a big Watson day. Could it be Hardman? Could it be Tony last year made some plays in that playoff run that mattered?
Can't be any of those guys. No.
I understand, but what I'm saying is somebody has to be last year's guy. You know, like somebody's got to make an unexpected play or two, and I think Watson's a guy I trust.
Buffalo, New York, cloudy, windy, and colder with snow showers coating to an inch. Dangerous travel with intense squalls in the South Towns and ski country. High at 25, low at 17, 94% chance of precipitation. Buffalo Bills are a 10-point favorite in the early game Sunday against the Mason Rudolph-led Pittsburgh
Whatever
Steelers.
you just did, you're just really good at that.
Thank you.
All right.
Winds could gust as high as 65 miles
Dude,
per
I
hour.
can't wait for
Holy-
this game.
That's a hurricane.
I'm gonna bet the under right after I get done with this.
It's a hurricane.
All you had to say was winds could gust to 65. Okay, and they've had some windy games up there in recent memory. It was obviously the New England game where barely anybody scored, and then I can remember Pittsburgh playing up there in the past couple of years when it was pretty frigid and windy. I have this picture of the flags just blowing sideways, but. The injuries, Gabe Davis, Rasul Douglas, things you want to keep an eye on. But if you're going to break this down, it's got to start with Pittsburgh's defense because that's the only way they're going to win this game. They're not going to outscore these guys, okay? So how do you create turnovers, right? If you get the bad Josh Allen for a half and you actually take advantage of the turnovers, unlike Miami, you can win this game. You really can. I mean, that double-digit line changes a lot in the first quarter if Josh Sosa pick backed up, right? You get to the live line, and you're looking at it's like Bills plus or -3. And so I think if you can get a timely early turnover, and Josh does not like cover 3. They have done a great job or an admirable job of patching in guys off the street. Patrick Peterson, let's play safety. Minka's coming back, okay? So watching Josh's attempts against cover 3, it's clear to me that they just don't attack the field in the same areas as like a Shanahan tree does. Like those offenses shred cover 3. You work the seams, you know where to hit it. Josh Josh is a vertical thrower, and he likes to take chances. I think also like pre-snap cover 3 can look a little different, right? The depth of those corners. So I think sometimes it's just Josh's chance taking outside the numbers and like being stubborn about it. And if you can make him throw some balls into 3 deep in the field, you might be able to get a takeaway or 2. I would make him take the quick options. I would make him work the ball down the field. Field goals aren't going to be a thing. Okay, like how many field goals are going to get kicked in this game? I would make them go on 12-play drives, because if we've seen anything from Josh that he doesn't do great is if you make him drive the ball down the field, eventually he might do something stupid, and that's your ticket, right? So I would give him the easy options, and I think about spying, like probably not on the menu. I looked at their whole defensive roster. Who can you actually pull out of somewhere else that's athletic enough and fits the bill to where he can tackle Josh in the open field? I don't think it's any of the backers. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick's that guy, but you need him in center field. So I think it's all about turnovers. I think it's all about forcing him to take the easy options and dictating that at times. But then when he takes the shots, take the ball away. And who can replace TJ Watt? It's a rhetorical question. Nobody. I understand we're making a big deal about this, but I would make a way bigger deal if they were playing Miami, because when you play a team that's getting the ball out in 2.5 or 2.25 seconds or less, then it's all about how do your elite rushers win fast. I could go sack Josh Allen this weekend. The clock's going to be 3.5 seconds at times, right? So I think it's about Highsmith winning. It's about Herbig winning, who's been great for them as a young player. And Marcus Golden's a guy that I thought was a really good rusher in Arizona, has had double digits. He's got a shot to put his stamp on this game. That's your ticket to winning the game. And you're going to have to run the ball. It's going to be 3-4 yards in a cloud of dust for Najee Harris and company. I think they have a fighter's chance because of turnovers.
Over under Buffalo Bills fumbles 0.5.
Over. And God, I hope it's not James Cook, because then we might not see him the rest of the playoffs. But there's a reason that you got playoff Lenny in the building, because you can trust the guy.
That's right. On occasion.
On occasion, not when you're hitting all his props.
Yeah.
But listen, I think this is going to be a fun game. It's 2 awesome fan bases. Glad they're in the dance. Pittsburgh deserves this opportunity. They fought through a lot to get here. Let's see how they play.
Green Bay's at Dallas. 2 storied franchises. Cowboys favored by 7.5. That totals 50.5. No chance of weather inside Jerry World.
There's no chance of weather there. Now, what it takes to win in Jerry's World this year, playing this Dallas team, because teams haven't really been able to do it, right? I don't think they've gotten beat at home. You know, they played Seattle. That was an absolute dogfight, but that was a high-scoring game. Detroit's more of the blueprint to playing them in a low-scoring game. I don't think this is going to be a low-scoring game. Okay, like
CeeDee Lamb.
By the way, we just heard Jair Alexander had a kind of a freak deal yesterday. Stepped on someone's foot, rolled an ankle in a jog through. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but what worries Green Bay is the defense, right? Like, I think they have the rushers to match up. I'd love to get Rashawn Gary on Terrence Steele. I don't know how Tyler Smith's feeling, but Kenny Clark will be a good test.
Jair Alexander's from Charlotte?
I know. But LaFleur didn't.
Yeah, he didn't know.
So I worry about that defense, although Joe Barry did a great job last week. It was the Bears, okay? CeeDee Lamb, as you know, moves around a lot. So it's not like you can just be like, hey, he's going to be outside. They put him in the slot. Your slot guy's going to have to match up. The defense worries me, no question. But I don't worry about this offense. I think this offense is played above and beyond their years. And by that I mean you got this young quarterback who's been sitting a while. It's his first full season, and he's turned the ball over one time over this stretch where he's had 16 touchdowns. This guy is playing like a mature quarterback, and it takes mature quarterback play to go in there and win. And by that I mean do not turn the ball over, and especially don't do it early. If they can avoid that, they have the things it takes to win here. Now, they're going to have to run the ball inside a little bit more than they're accustomed to. But Aaron Jones looks really good since he came back. And I think, you give him some thunder and some lightning. Aaron Jones is a really good pass-catching option against this defense. Another thing for them is, does Gilmore play? Supposedly he's not doing anything all week. So, DeRon Bland has the length, but he struggled with DK Metcalf. I'm not saying Romeo Dobbs is that. I'm not saying Christian Watson's that, but you might have some size mismatch situations popping up. Also in the slot, I like the matchup for Jaden Reed. He's playing Jordan Lewis inside. Like, I like that slot matchup for them. He's got to win. I think this game's probably a 28-24 type game. Now, I think Green Bay's got a shot here. I really do. I might look up on Monday and have egg on my face, but I think Green Bay's got a shot to win this game. I bet them on money line. I bet them on the money line. I bet them catching 7.5. I think it's going to be a great game.
Jordan Love was 27-32 last week, so they may not be household names. Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed.
Didn't even mention Wicks. He's been great.
Bo Melton.
Yeah.
Luke Musgrave's back. He trusts the other tight end, Tucker Kraft. I mean, they're just the ball doesn't hit the ground a lot for Green Bay.
Which is a great thing, man. You know, it's a great thing because you do want to play keep away from the offense, and if you can do that while and complete balls, keep the clock running. You know, you don't have a bunch of incompletions. You don't have a lot of clock stoppages. Keep this offense off the field. They can do that. I really do think that. How they protect, that to me is up in the air. You know, but I think they have some of the things that it's going to take to play this team tough at Jerry's World.
Sunday night, we've got the Rams at the Lions. Lions are favored by 3 points. A lot of people refer to this as the Matt Stafford game. I think just as interesting a storyline is it being a Jared Goff game.
Yeah, I kind of think about it that way. I more think about it that way. And the reason I think about it that way is, bear with me here, but when you think about like motivation outside of just who's the better team, you think about that I don't know, that invisible motivation that sometimes gets overplayed in games like this. There are two people, I think, that have like storyline games for the Rams. That's Matt Stafford. Obviously, he's coming home. He wants to win this game. But is he mad at Detroit? It's like asking me if I'm mad at St. Louis. Like, the fact that I'm not there anymore is what gave me the life that I desired, right? Like, I appreciate the place. I know he's got love for Detroit, but I don't see him grinding an axe. I see this as more of a fuck. I hope I don't lose to Detroit. And for McVay, it's I definitely don't want to lose to the guy that admittedly I didn't think was the answer, and I shipped him out of town. Like, and for the other guys, so that's two people that have that motivation. You know what motivation really works? Everybody on that Detroit roster wanting to get Jared Goff this win. You know what motivation really works? Everybody in that city wanting to beat Matt Stafford. So they're walking into a beehive. I mean, I think they have everything it takes to keep this game close and possibly win it. Okay? But it's all going to be about who plays tight, especially at quarterback. And I have a lot of faith in Jared. I know that at times I've been like, you know, the guy's not your perfect quarterback, but I think he's pretty mentally tough. I do. And I think he's going to have to make some big throws, but it starts with who runs the ball, right? And, you know, I also think going back to this like interpersonal thing, McVay knows Goff really well. I mean, it's easy to draw a straight line there. When Gannon came to Philadelphia, you know, you think about him knowing the offense well, but he also knows the defense well. Well, it's easy to see that McVay probably knows Jared like the back of his hand. He knows what he doesn't like. He knows what he likes. He also knows that in the Super Bowl, as soon as that radio in his headset cut off before the snap, he couldn't talk to him anymore, and Bill would disguise late. You know, he knows things like that. So I think the irony of this is both teams are built the same way. They're both built off of the run game. You know, like I've made this argument before that in 2018, that Rams team that played in that shootout with Patrick Mahomes that went 54-51, people talk about that like it was a historic offense. It sputtered down the stretch because Todd Gurley got hurt. Okay. Or they stopped using him. I think this offense is better. I think it's more functional in the playoffs, and I think that's because you have better number two. It's a different play action game. Todd was more stretch. They're going to run more inside run, and the play action looks off of that are different. But you also have a better quarterback than you had that year. And that's no disrespect to Jared Goff, but Matt Stafford is one of the best to ever do it, in my opinion. He's not on the short list. He's on a longer list of the best to ever do it. Stats prove that out. He's got a Super Bowl. I think it's about who stops the run. It's a lot of the same with these two teams. The Rams defense is top 10 running the ball. especially down the stretch. And, you know, like they went to Baltimore and Lamar led that team in rushing with 70 yards rushing. So, like, they can stop the run. I know Detroit can pressure Stafford. Detroit has gotten a lot of pressures this year, not a ton of sacks, but pressures enough to get to Matt Stafford. Goff is really good against cover 3, okay, as opposed to some of the other quarterbacks. I wonder how much that changes with Laporta out, you know?
And we just got some news from Laporta today that he was able to get some reps in practice and is optimistic he'll play.
I don't believe it.
That's huge.
I don't believe it.
Could be.
I've seen guys play with bone bruises before, and I'm not minimizing a bone bruise. A bone bruise, if you think about your two bones, I don't know which, with tibia and your femur or whatever it is, hitting each other,
Ow.
it's a big ow. I mean, that's how I got my my tibial plateau fracture. It feels like you tore your ACL. And it's just a step lower than that, where it's like it's a bunch of swelling and that sort of thing. So I'm sure he's on top of the swelling.
A bone bruise is two bones hitting each other?
Yeah. Just the
Sheesh.
thought of it is like, fuck, dude. But, you know, like we end up with this situation where if he plays, great. But if not, that's your security blanket. That's the guy you hit down the seams, especially against the covers that they run. And by the way, the Packers ran cover 3 and kicked their ass on Thanksgiving. And a lot of that was because the inside rushers got home. And let me tell you this, a lot of people forget about Aaron Donald. I mean, really, I'm not just saying that because it sounds cute. The national media does not talk about Aaron Donald this year because this team does not fit the narratives that we put on it at the beginning of the season. I didn't think they'd be this good. Egg on my face. Great. I got no problem with it. I want to see Aaron Donald get after these guys inside because he can do that. I mean, if they have problems up front, like they've had him inside at times. And so I look at Aaron Donald. If you can get to this dude, you have a formula to keep the points down and win this game. So it's all about stopping the run. And for the Rams, I'll throw this caveat in. On 3rd and medium, that's a hell of a situation for Raheem Morris to be in against Detroit, who is totally fine running trap on 3rd and 5. You know, like, do you put your little guys on the field? Do you put your big guys on the field, your backers who are not great in coverage on the field in those situations? How do you match their personnel in those weird kind of downs that Detroit makes weird and other teams don't?
That Kobe Turner's really good, too.
He is really good.
Next to Aaron.
He's really good. I hope his ticket doesn't cash, but he's really good.
Monday night, the Philadelphia Eagles are in Tampa. Eagles favored by 3 points.
As I said, it's the best place the Eagles can be, in Tampa. Okay? And I mean that. Like, a quote went viral this week on one of these Philly aggregate sites where I said, you know, if the Eagles are at home, they're going to piss down their leg, you know? And that's an indictment on them. It's also an indictment on just the temperature in that city right now. Like, I don't know if I might piss down my leg. But this team certainly will. And I think, you know, like if you come out there at home and you go 3 and out, like you're all of a sudden playing against the other team and your own crowd. And you can feel that in the link when things are bad. And so I think getting away from home is a good thing for these guys. Go somewhere warm. Get away from that. And not like they played themselves in this position on purpose, but you could get Slay back. Sidney Brown's out, but Maddox came back against Arizona. I think like that helps a lot. A.J. Brown and Devontae, they're hopeful that these guys come back, in the words of Nick Sirianni. But even if they don't come back, I think Philly can win this game. I'm not saying I'm betting on them. Didn't give them out as a lock. But who does the weather favor? They're going to be playing in a fucking monsoon. The Eagles ran for 201 against these guys back earlier this season. What has changed from a personnel standpoint about the Eagles since that point? Not a lot. You know, the receivers, we'll see what happens, but I think
A.J. Brown did not practice today.
A.J. Brown didn't practice. I don't expect him to play. If I had to guess, I think Devontae Smith plays. But the whole thing is they got in 4-minute mode against that team, and they drove the ball for 8 minutes and just called game. Like, it was over. The minute they touched the ball, there were like 8 minutes left in the game, and they kneeled down on it. That's what you got to do. Like, it's that simple. And, you know, when it comes down to it, if you got to trust somebody, because Nick Sirianni, who can you trust? I can't trust my coordinators that I hired. Jalen Hurts isn't playing well. He hasn't thrown a ball since fucking last week. His finger was sideways. There's guys hurt. I can't trust the defense. I can't trust the DBs. I can trust Lane Johnson. I can trust Jordan Mailata. I can trust Jason Kelsey. Okay? I can trust those guys up front and the matchups we have. So, you know, the Eagles ran counter against these guys, for instance, 5 times for 8 yards a pop. Okay? they're going to be able to run the ball on these cats. Are they going to decide to do it? That's the whole thing. How do the Eagles handle the blitz and passing situations? That's a big one for me. Okay, people, if you have eyes, you watch Eagles games and you say, they don't have hots. They don't have easy answers for Jalen Hurts. Like, what the fuck is going on here? I know he's not playing well, but there have been no easy answers for him against the blitz. And Dallas Goedert had a quote this week. We weren't able to get the checks that probably would have worked better, but it's something just being able to see them as a QB and then have good answers as the coach, which he's alluding to the fact that, you know, we didn't have the checks for blitzes. Like, we don't have those right now. We got to be able to have those. We got to have the answers, and I think that's a worry for me. Is like, if you get in passing situations, even in this rainstorm, you're going to have to throw the ball at times. Like, Todd's going to heat you up.
Is Nick Sirianni coaching for his job?
I think he is if things get ugly. They could lose this game. I don't think he necessarily loses his job, but how do you lose this game if you lose this game?
What if Coach of the Year Todd Bowles gets blown out, and then Bill says, "Oh, Tom, you won a Super Bowl in Tampa?
I'm going to do it too.
I'm going to do it too."
I don't think Todd's going to lose his job this year, but things are surprising sometimes. I think for the Bucs offense, it's really interesting for the Eagles defense. We know they have to commit bodies to the back end. You know, like, you're not going to be able to load up an 8-man box and stop the run. Mike Evans is going to play in the slot some. That's scary, okay? They've run power efficiently down the stretch. So, like, some of this gap seam stuff they've improved on. You talk about the run game improving for Tampa, but I think where it really comes down to for Philly's defense is if our offense has a good day and keeps them off the field, and if we can get off the field in passing situations, we can flip this script. They're actually, the irony of coming down there is a team that just won the NFC, playing the Super Bowl. They're actually playing like the team that's the underdog. They have to keep the Bucs off the field because the Eagles they're 31st in the league in opponent drive plays. So, like, if you take all the drives that your opponents have, the Eagles are sitting on the bench looking at the fucking iPad the longest offensively. And so you got to flip that script. And so you got to play keep away from a hobbled Baker Mayfield who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn last week. But that's where we are, right? So that's the way I play this game. I try to be more physical. I try to get the ball out of Baker's hands when I can with pressure. But more than anything, it's about controlling the line of scrimmage. I can't make this thing complicated, as hard as I might try. It is about, will you make a decision to put the keys of the car in the hands of the guys who you can actually trust, and will you run the ball and do what you do? And I think if you don't, there's going to be a mutiny in the locker room and in the city.
How many Brother Rice kids in these playoffs?
None.
Oh,
But
wow, that's not very many at all.
the
Shout out Aaron Stinney, St. Anne's Belfield.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Left guard,
That's
Tampa Bay.
true.
Trey Pierce just won a national championship with Michigan, Brother Rice High School.
Okay.
Macon, when's the last time you
Minors?
shit your pants?
Ho! I was diagnosed and hospitalized with norovirus about 1 month ago. Kev,
So
You shit your pants in that instance?
I answered my own
Okay.
question. I didn't answer his question.
Philly
Got a
needs to
reputation
shit
in
their
this
pants.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Shit your pants, get back to neutral.
That's
They're
what
walking
they did
around.
last week.
Not really though.
Oh,
they're walking around
They just
kind
got
of
a
feeling
turtle hat.
sorry for themselves and shit. Shit your pants.
Just-
go rock bottom. All right.
That's why they're there, though.
They gotta shit their pants.
They got to shit
Okay?
their pants. Philly,
It's the ultimate equalizer.
I can see Nick Sirianni up there with his, like, dark circles around his eyes.
Nothing
Like,
wrong
all
with that.
All stressed out, pointing with a laser pointer to the 4 keys of the game. Shit your pants, run the ball, don't turn it over.
Just shit your pants. And I'm not talking like diarrhea. I don't need that. Like, I'm just talking a little fucking shit kiss on the underwear, bacon strip,
Just a little.
just to keep you honest.
I think at the
You
very
gotta-
least,
you got-
at the very least, it looked like they smeared a Milky Way in their underwear last week. I think last week was the rock bottom.
Well, then I think they come out with a win. Then
You can ask me when I shit my
When's
pants.
the last time you made in your
Yeah.
pants?
Mount Kilimanjaro 2013 maybe. It was the first time I ever climbed the mountain. I took some malaria medicine, which I don't really do ever since then, but I think the malaria medicine upset my stomach, but also I might have eaten something, right? And so I get on the mountain, and day 2 we're trekking through the rainforest, and I sit up on this rock, and I'm trying to just release this really oppressive gas bubble, and I'm pushing, and you know what happens next. It's not gas. I'm sitting on this rock. I've shit my pants. I have to take my hiking pants off and the whole thing, and they're depositing them on the mountain. I'm walking through the jungle, right, for the next 2 hours, wiping my ass with jungle leaves this big.
You're better for it, though.
Exactly. Ever since then, my life's been uphill.
That's what I'm saying. You hit rock bottom. But now here's the other thing. It can work when you're going well. You got to shit your pants too.
Yeah.
Because then it neutralizes it and it keeps you honest.
Yeah, you gotta see.
So like right now, Baltimore should be shitting their pants everywhere. Shit your pants. John Harbaugh, don't even worry about practice. Just shit your pants.
Shit your pants 2024.
And
Shit your pants 2024.
What if like it's going? What if like it's just going okay for you?
you shit your pants.
Okay.
Here's my parting thought on the playoffs.
And I've never shit my pants.
Here's
You
my
guys are
parting.
gross.
Here's my parting thought on the playoffs. Here's my parting thought on the playoffs. And put this bracket back up. But my parting thought is this: there's a lot of coaches that are interviewing for these jobs, and I feel like it's happening more and more every year. And I think the rule is stupid. I don't think you should be able to interview for a job while your players are busting their ass to do the thing that the coaches are imploring them every minute of the day. If you're not spending it on football, you're playing for the other team. I've heard those sentiments in so many different versions, not just in the playoffs. I haven't been there that much, but I know what it's about. And I just cannot imagine, like when you really talk it out, the fact that there are guys getting ready to play in a playoff game, to coach in a playoff game, who are flying somewhere else, who are taking time out of their week to prepare answers. Brian Johnson for the Eagles. You think David Tepper's really interviewing him? Okay? Whatever you want to think about that, you know, this guy's spending some time preparing for this interview. You know, like, we look at all these games, okay? You know, Frank Smith's going to be interviewing for a head coaching job at some point, maybe. You know, like if Miami wins this game. Detroit, L.A., they've got guys. Raheem Morris, Ben Johnson, Dan Quinn for Dallas. Green Bay, they're lucky, right? They shit their pants on defense so that Joe Barry doesn't have to interview during the playoffs, which is kind of genius. There are guys on every staff almost that are, I mean, Houston, Slowick. There are guys on every staff who are going to be taking these trips. And I think historically, if you look at it, and I said it'd be great to study it, and Reed's like, I think we've already studied it. It's not good. When your team has a coordinator that's interviewing for one of these head coaching jobs, you would think because he's in that conversation, you're that much better than the other team who doesn't have somebody interviewing. But more often than not, those guys don't play well. Their units don't play as well. And so I think that's my parting shot on the playoffs is, number one, they should change the fucking rule. Number two, look out for coaches that their heads are elsewhere in the playoffs. And the best possible round 2 games that we can imagine, call them out, because the next time we talk, we'll know what round 2 looks like. I think Buffalo winning's good for football, right? So Buffalo wins.
That could be Buffalo at Kansas City.
No, Kansas City at Buffalo.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, Kansas City at Buffalo. That'd be fucking brilliant. And then we'd get Cleveland at Baltimore, or would you rather have Houston at Baltimore?
I kind of like Houston. That was a week 1 game. That was a 1-point game at halftime.
It's funny when you look back at those games from week 1, you try to see which ones really meant nothing that we thought meant something, and some actually could tell you something. And I think, you know, you looked at the Houston-Baltimore game and you're like, yeah, that's a young quarterback who's not ready playing a great defense, when really actually it's 2 of the better teams in the league. And, you know, it's 25-9 or whatever it was. I think it could look different the second time around. So we hope for those four teams, right? Like,
I think so.
And then in the NFC,
it's hard to go wrong. I'd like to see a Detroit at Dallas again.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then a Philly and San Francisco.
But can you imagine San Francisco, Green Bay? And a game that I actually think Green Bay would have a fighting chance. 2 of America's teams, San Francisco and Green Bay, reminding me of my childhood. And then what you'd get there would be Detroit hosting, like, fuck, dude, that's the problem. Detroit's
maybe Philly hosting the Rams.
Philly could be hosting the Rams, you know. There's a whole bunch of scenarios here, but I think it's a little bit more wide open in the NFC as far as like which games we want to see. In the AFC, I think we want to see Mahomes versus Allen, and we want to see Lamar versus either interconference, interdivision nemesis in Cleveland or upstart rookie.
Yep.
If Dallas and Detroit play, I feel like we should make turkey
Why's
and
that?
stuffing. Yeah, I mean it's Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, it's
Like,
Thanksgiving.
I
We
mean,
should have
that's-
Thanksgiving too.
I'm gonna make the stuffing.
Yeah, that's cool. Make the stuffing.
I'm gonna make the stuffing.
Okay, cool.
It's good stuff.
We should also all report.
Yeah, we should report to work.
Yeah.
Reporting for the live stream. All right, everybody, enjoy the weekend. Happy hunting. Enjoy Wild Card Weekend, because after this, it's not going to be the same for gamblers, for people that love a full slate. Division round's great, but in 2 weeks you're going to be playing conference championships. It's going to be 2 games. Okay, soak it up. Soak it up.